a lot of attention is given by the stores, by the publishers, by the advertisers, by platforms like Anzu to the user experience. It's something that the experience affects so many aspects of the game, with having players stay with the game, spend with the game, just play it over and over again, and by that potentially seeing more ads, that it's a sort of a very delicate ecosystem.
Correct.
Hello, everyone. This is 2025, February, the week of DICE. We're not in DICE. We are in
ChatGBD.
Amen to that. The podcast that covers advertising, media, in-game advertising. And with us, as always,
Maor, Director of Growth here in Anzu.
hello, Maor.
In a week.
Another week, another exciting news. My name is Guy. I'm the EVP of Supply and Revenue Operation at Anzu, the leading in-game advertising solution provider out there. This week, we are waiting for more news from DICE, more on the HD side. And speaking of, I understand Steam just released an update to their terms and conditions referring advertising.
Yep.
Right.
Interesting. Luckily, Steam are looking at what's happening in their space, and they just announced that they are not allowing rewarded videos,
right,
to be used on whatever game developers they have.
So gatekeeping, a lot of things that we see on mobile, right?
Yeah. So I know some companies were making attempts to do that, something similar, to the mobile ecosystem, Max and Unity. Very interesting.
They're not stopping custom. They're not stopping billboards.
No.
I don't think they can, given...
Nothing on the intrinsic side. Yep.
Right. So everybody is looking at things, Steam forever didn't refer a lot to advertisements in a big way. They think this is the biggest update I've seen over the last 5 years in terms of referencing advertising.
I think they acknowledge that advertising can be a source of income for developers rather than pure, IP or sales. So.
Yep. So it takes us into, a lot of, like 2-4 points that I wanted to cover. Back, I'm looking at the history of in-game advertising and advertising in games overall. The number one cause was revenues, but also everybody tried to add a level of reality when it came to cityscapes, racing, and sports, right? When did you meet in-game advertising or brand in games first? Do you remember?
Honestly, I think, and this is very retrospective, but I had a big gap in my PlayStation experience. I had my PlayStation, the first version, and I played all the sports, NBA, NHL, and they placed over there what we call in-game advertising without any measurement or such. But back then, so what was it? 1998? 1997, maybe?
Yeah.
That was my first time.
One of the best exposure, was racing, HD racing games. And, for a while, they, publishers were running to sign up, vehicle makers, brands. And then over time, it transitioned for the vehicle makers to paying the publishers to appear inside the games. All the way to John Deere with their tractors and farming, right? With farming simulators.
The very cool part here that the brand wants to pay the developer and not vice versa.
Yeah. And that's, I think a lot of it is understanding, the brands understanding the value, but also the publishers depending somewhat, at least, on the revenues coming in from these type of brand integrations. How important do you feel today advertising overall is critical for publishers, mobile and non-mobile?
Immensely. I mean, advertising, I think, like we talked on previous episodes, advertising is bringing a lot of challenges over time, but in the end, on one hand, brands wants to continue to find new ways to engage, and this will always happen through advertising. And the more developers will acknowledge it, the more money they will make, and within their income mix. So I think it's there for eternity, in my perspective. And any publisher who is not monetizing through any sort of ads is missing a great source of income.
One of the most exciting thing about but mobile games specifically, I think
Mhm.
they're leading the way in that, is that they are managing different channels of revenues, and they balance them all, right? I
Mhm.
mean, advertising is part of a few channels of revenues, right? If you look at mobile
Yep.
games, can you sort of map for us
Yeah.
the different revenue channels?
So I think I'll go from like end to end. Developers are gonna have an ad monetization team. Um, it could be in-house within the publisher, it could be within the studio, it could be somewhere in between. Essentially, they are responsible for rewarded ads if they choose to use it, video rewarded ads, banners, interstitials, offer walls. Um, and within the ad networks, sometimes they have separate teams, one for rewarded, one for offer wall. So they cater towards the publisher needs. Um, Publishers sometimes will use banners only, rewarded video only. And there are also teams for monetization, classic monetization. How can I make more money for my players? Traditionally through IP, in-app
In-app
purchases.
purchases. So they balance how many players come in, and that's user acquisition. But
Mm-hmm.
then when they come in, they need to stay longer,
Mm-hmm.
retention.
Mm-hmm.
So it needs to have a great user experience through the exposure, the first exposure to the game, and then
Mhm.
leading the player to come back,
Yep.
another time and another time. Go into the store, purchase whatever you need to purchase, a sword, more coins, whatever,
Yep.
right? And then through that, sometime be exposed to advertisement without hurting the retention of the players and them spending,
Mhm.
right? And in that, I think in-game advertising, intrinsic in-game advertising is fairly new in offering another layer into that.
Mhm.
That's, I want to say, less intrusive, right? It doesn't stop your gameplay.
And essentially, it's also the type of revenues that it's coming these days from intrinsic in advertising is our brand dollars. On traditionally, you can access those dollars through rewarded placement or a banner, but the balance is it's very contextual in the end. They want to have like the advertiser would typically be an app developer or game developer, and they want to purchase
Right.
impressions from another app. So the balance is where they want publisher will see more dollars coming in from app advertising rather than um, brand advertising.
Yep.
With in-game advertising, with intrinsic, they will get a full exposure of all the options that brand dollars can give to a developer.
So in a way, what you're saying that it doesn't cannibalize,
Correct.
right, other channels,
Mm-hmm.
right? It's a really new channel. It doesn't compete with other advertising channel.
Correct.
And I know some publishers working with Anzu also check on a quarterly basis, right, the balance between all these elements, the retention, in-app purchases, advertisements, and intrinsic in-game
In
advertisements.
the end, when they're purchasing, especially on mobile, they are acquiring a user through traditional UA, and they're looking at the LTV. And the LTV can come from purchases and like any way the publisher can make money out of the new user that just arrived.
Lifetime value.
Correct.
Yeah.
So it could be, for them, ideally, they want to see a quick turnaround. They purchase someone for, I don't know, $2 CPI. They want to see the return as quickly as possible.
days or few months.
Correct.
Yeah.
And each publisher has its own ways to determine what's the period where this user needs to be ROI positive, basically.
In some games, a player could stay for years, right?
What?
They wouldn't pay anything. It reminds me playing solitaire,
Mhm.
right? On my iPad, I haven't paid for it, but I'm watching ads like crazy, right? Every session, I think there are at least two. So I think I created enough money on that level. Um, we have, major publishers working with Anzu, and I'll be the first to say it's never an easy situation where you come into the room and you say, hey, I can make you more money. And then they just say, stay outside of the door with the rest of the hundred of people that promise us more
Wait
money.
in the line.
Wait in line. What do you think, what do you believe are the 3, 4 biggest items that a publisher or ad monetization person would look at choosing, in-game advertising and choosing specifically Anzu within that?
I think, like we always say that there's a way to optimize placements, but we saw many cases where the first iteration of placements that were introduced was also the final iteration, meaning that on certain cases, it could be a one-time work from development perspective, design.
Integration of the ad placement and the tech side.
Tech lead SDK implementing the placement. It could be a one-time thing, and then just waiting for the dollars. And this is where Anzu is specialized, getting those dollars in. So it's not a big heavy lifting from my perspective. If you are interested, once you see revenues ramping up, you will be motivated.
You can optimize.
You can optimize. The team at Anzu can always support. We have a dedicated my team, the growth team. Will help to optimize. We have other team within the company on the tech side, creative side that can bring in fresh ideas. So this is where we are, shining with great support and giving the service to publishers that are interested to expand further. But like I said in the beginning, once you implement, you will see revenues quite immediately. And sometimes this will be.
And these revenues would just, again, to map the different channels of revenues coming in, these ad placement. I know, a lot of people know about the exchanges of the world where you have quote unquote unlimited amount of campaigns, low CPMs, but what are those different channels?
So we have at Anzu in-house, we have several teams. It starts with direct deals that we have globally, working with brands and agencies. We activate them through DSPs and SSPs. We also provide managed services. So that's one side.
More manual.
But in the end, these are brands that we're heavily engaged with them, either through an agency or direct.
Big budgets.
Big budgets, 6-7 figures. That's number one. Number two, the reselling activity, where we work with companies that are offering services from various traffic sources like Anzu, and they go into agencies or other providers. Number three is the big open exchange world, where we are integrated with leading SSPs, exchanges, and DSPs. Through traditional, RTB ecosystem, monetizing those placements.
We're able to balance and really provide the best CPM at each point.
Correct.
Cool. A lot of, what I've seen working, and I admire a lot of platforms that are not doing intrinsic, but they are really investing in educating the market. There's a lot of documentation. I know Anzu invested in that as well, but there's the glossary, the need to really bridge the world of games and game development, and then the world of advertisements, right? The marketing side of it. How can you create this translation, right?
I think that's what
close the gap.
I think that's what's working at Anzu make the whole thing be more exciting and challenging. Um, because we're dealing heavily with brands that are primarily interested in buying, sorry, traditionally they are buying web or CTV. Over there, they are looking heavily on viewability and completion rate, video completion rate. We're taking those KPIs and translating them into the gaming in-app space.
Yeah.
Because traditionally on rewarded video and banners, viewability is not an issue per se because the placements are acting as an overlay.
Yep.
Versus us, where we're actually implemented within the game engine, part of the experience, and location matters. So we have
almost like in the real world,
exactly.
right?
So,
Location.
exactly. So we have our viewability KPI. We're working very closely with the developers and guiding them what is a good location, what is a good number, viewability score that will generate them those needed impressions,
Yep.
high CPN impressions.
Which takes me to the most important thing. Everybody cares, the publishers, the advertisers. We care about the players,
Mm-hmm.
the audience, the users, the people who actually play the games and see the ads and view the ads, going back to them. In terms of user experience, again, this is a new ad format. It's been with us for years when it comes to just placement, but now that it's programmatic, that it's changing, what do you think would be the interesting trends where players would look at it and would say, oh, this is new, and then they would say, oh, this is okay?
I think anything that allows some more brands in the end are looking at two things: upper funnel and lower funnel. Upper funnel is awareness, lower funnel is more on the some sort of short-term performance, making action.
Yeah.
I think over time we will see those placements are allowing, not mandatory, but allowing developers to introduce some more performance-based ads. And this is where we will see more interest coming in from brands that are looking for two tactics, like I said, lower and upper funnel. And this is where we will see the users, the players, how they are engaging with it and accepting it and helping the developer continue produce great content and continue making those dollars.
Going back to point number one with Steam, this is a lot of attention is given by the stores, by the publishers, by the advertisers, by platforms like Anzu to the user experience. It's something that the experience affects so many aspects of the game, with having players stay with the game, spend with the game, just play it over and over again, and by that potentially seeing more ads, that it's a sort of a very delicate ecosystem.
Correct.
Right.
I've seen recently, I've been playing on my mobile device, my iPhone, I'm playing some games. And unfortunately, I was forced to see a video, even two videos, non-skippable, summing to, I don't know, 1.5 minutes.
Wow.
It's annoying. Cannot ignore this. It's
a minute and a half for video for a gameplay that's the core loop
Yep.
would be a minute and a half, maybe.
Yep. And this is where we're coming in with potentially, not interfering users. And if someone is actually interested on doing any action, it's their choice.
Yep.
That will be maybe in the future.
I'm excited to see how the evolution goes. Speaking of, if you hear this before GDC, Maor and I will be at GDC and we would love to meet you. There are quite a few other conferences coming up. And don't forget our many different programs that we have for developers.
Yeah, the self-serve program, we're going to leave a link next to this episode. Can sign up, integrate very quickly, and start making those dollars very efficiently.
Cool. It's been a pleasure to hosting you again. Thank you. Thank you for the tech guy near the background. Looking forward to see you again. If you love this, if you like this, go ahead, subscribe, click the bell button, click whatever is there to follow us. Looking forward to catching up soon again.
Thank you.
Thank you.